This is what happened when I was about 20 years old, when I used to work at a factory to earn a living. Life working at a factory was so boring, but I've got used to it as I forced myself to work there. I got to be friends with a colleague there, whose name was Devin. He had a shaggy beard and always smelled like alcohol. He always had horror books with him and enjoyed grotesque jokes. One day, when we were chatting, he said, "Hey, I just came up with an amazing idea." Then he showed me his notebook, on which dozens of people's names were written. Among them were the names of the factory manager and some of his colleagues. "I will kill them all within the next years. What do you think? Isn't it an awesome plan?" I thought he was joking, and so I said, "Are you having a hard time these days? You've lost your mind. I told you to take it easy." And then he said, "No, I really found the perfect way to murder. I can make a person disappear without a single trace." I told him, "Take a vacation and get some rest. I'll tell our boss for you." And I went to work, but he was looking at his notebook incessantly. A few days later, he looked much more joyful than usual. I asked him if there's any good news, and he invited me to his house saying he had something to show me. When I arrived at his house, he said there is something great in the basement and took me there. In the basement, he put on gloves and goggles and opened up a large barrel. Smoke poured from the barrel, and he used a big pair of tongs to pull something out of it. "A bone," he said. "It takes a very long time to dissolve bodies, but it doesn't mean it's impossible. This means that it's possible to murder and not get caught by the police." My body started to tremble. Apparently, what he was holding was a bone of a human. He said, "Would you like to go inside this barrel too? And tell me how you feel when you're inside. I'm really curious. The pain of being dissolved. It is often said that being burnt is the most painful. How would that feel?" I asked everyone to tell me, but they wouldn't say anything if they go inside. Then he suddenly grabbed me and struggled to get me into the barrel. At that moment, I fought with him with all my might. We fought, tossing and turning. But what he was overlooking was that I am very strong. After a long fight, I picked him up from the ground and put him in the barrel, and he fell inside head first. He screamed and writhed himself, which didn't last more than 3 seconds, and I didn't have to look inside to find out what happened to him. I ran away like crazy. I couldn't even call the police and stayed home for several days, trembling. About 3 days passed since then, and I couldn't do anything, trembling in fear, and decided to go back to his house after all. His door was still open as it was when I left his house, and the house was full of bizarre smoke and a strange smell. When I went down to the basement and approached the barrel, there were parts of his body that had melted and were hard to recognize. I freaked out and ran away. I considered concealing everything, but eventually decided to report it to the police. Investigations revealed that he had already killed about 3 people. Several barrels filled with the sulfuric acid were found in his house, with human hair and pieces of bones inside. And a notebook was found in his room on which he was writing a horror novel. The process of how he lured people and put them into the sulfuric acid barrel was written in detail. And the following content of the novel was about putting me in a barrel of sulfuric acid. It said that a few days after killing me, he missed me and tried to take my body back out, but my body had already melted and disappeared. I was shocked. The police asked me if I had an argument with him recently, but there was no such thing. I still can't understand why he did those things. Did he really do all that to write his horror novel?